Some fans are devastated by the loss of David Montgomery, and I understand it, but I'm here today to tell you why Ryan Poles has improved our running back room already. This draft class is loaded at running back, and while it was fun to imagine a backfield with Justin Fields and a more dynamic runner like Saquon, Tony Pollard, or Josh Jacobs, I think it's much more realistic that Ryan Poles sticks with Khalil Herbert this season. It's still possible he adds someone from the draft, but adding Foreman was a huge move. I never really thought Poles would bring Monty back. I've always thought there was a really good chance he'd add from this very talented running back draft class. I think Khalil Herbert will be a big part of this offense, and Foreman makes an exciting 1-2 punch. I love Monty, but he signed in Detroit, so I wish him the best, and I might make a tribute video for him. He was an awesome Bear, a fan favorite, and always one of the funniest, most charismatic players on the roster. It was easy to like that guy, but it's time to move on. The NFL is a business, and it's simply not considered good business in the NFL to pay running backs. You see that when the Giants would rather pay Daniel Jones $40 million a year and tag Saquon than they would pay Saquon $15 million a season and tag Daniel Jones. It makes sense that the Lions got him. Although I wish him personal success, I do not hope he wins in Detroit. This next quick segment here I wrote up before Monty got signed, but I wanted to quickly read it so you guys knew my take before Monty was signed. It's a crazy world in the NFL. I think Monty deserves to be paid. I just think the Bears are in a unique position with Khalil Herbert and a great running back draft class that they don't need to pay Monty. I wouldn't argue if they did. He's a solid and dependable runner who is a leader in the locker room. Part of the reason I think it's okay to move on from Monty is that Khalil Herbert was just so much better than Monty in this offense. It was a new scheme, but Herbie outperformed Monty all season long in almost every metric you can find. More yards per carry, more yards after contact, more yards before contact. It's not that Monty was bad. Herbert was actually just really awesome this season, and Monty was just below average. Herbert also brings some of that home run speed and awesome burst to this offense. The biggest loss for this offense would be in pass protection and catching the ball out of the backfield, which is why I thought it was possible that Monty could come back. Boom. That was my take before Monty signed with Detroit. I will dig a bit deeper into why Herbert is just better in just a moment. But my biggest worry was pass blocking and having a third down back, and Poles immediately addressed that. Just moments after Monty signed with Detroit, Poles agreed to terms with Travis Homer immediately and then added Foreman the next day. Homer's a perfect third down running back. He can come in and play well if injuries strike, but he's also perfect in passing situations. He's an awesome pass blocker, and he can catch checkdown passes. Khalil Herbert and Foreman should grab the other two spots, and that leaves Darrynton Evans and Trestan Ebner in trouble. I also think Poles could take a shot in this year's draft class. However, even if he doesn't, I think Khalil Herbert, Foreman, and Travis Homer are an awesome trio of backs. Khalil Herbert deserves a chance to be an every down back, but Foreman has performed well enough to get a shot as well. He gives Herbert some competition and the potential for a very dynamic 1-2 punch. I think Foreman and Herbert are a better duo than Monty and Herbert were last year. Important note here, both Foreman and Homer only signed 1-year deals, and Khalil Herbert is only under contract for 2 more years. So it's still very possible, even though we have 3 solid running backs on the roster, that Poles drafts another one. I will be doing a video on the top 20 running backs in this year's draft class soon, but I will tell you that this is a really good class of runners, and Poles should be able to improve the group on draft day. That's coming soon, but today I wanted to dig into why I really like Khalil Herbert, and even though I was a big fan of David Montgomery like most of you, this rushing attack should be much more dangerous without Monty. Simply put, Khalil Herbert outperformed Monty in nearly every single rushing category. Whether you look at the stat sheets analytics, next-gen stats, or advanced stats, Herbert consistently graded out better than Monty in Luke Getzey's offense. Nearly 60% of Monty's runs went for 3 yards or less. He was the literal definition of 3 yards in a cloud of dust last year. I've studied the 2021 tape, the 2022 tape, and looked at every advanced statistic I could find. The tape and the stats agree that Herbert was simply better in this offense. Nothing showcases it better than this graphic, which compares running backs' ability to run before and after contact. Khalil Herbert stands out. He played at an elite level last season and was a huge part of our rushing success. Herbert was top 5 in the entire NFL at yards after contact, which was supposed to be Monty's specialty. But Herbert beat out even Derrick Henry, and he destroyed Monty. He was also top 5 at yards before contact, showcasing his ability to make defenders miss as well. Meanwhile, David Montgomery was near the bottom of the NFL in both categories. Herbert was simply elite in 2022. He deserves a chance to be a starting running back. Not only does he have the vision and burst to rip defenses apart, but he was also better at breaking tackles and getting yards after contact than guys like Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, and David Montgomery. He's very underrated. Herbert is legit and has a chance to be one of the better running backs in the entire league. He fits our scheme and had tons of success last year. He should be the starter heading into next season. He's not without weaknesses though. David Montgomery was a much better pass blocker and receiver. Herbert struggles in that aspect, which is why Travis Homer and Foreman were brought in and make a ton of sense. Homer can pick up the slack for Herbert without having to rely on a rookie to pass block for Justin Fields. Foreman is also a better pass blocker than Herbert. Ryan Poles can still draft a running back. As I've said, this is a very good class. I believe Herbert is the running back 1, but Poles also added another very talented runner in Foreman. Going back to the running back chart here, Herbert stands out as the best on the roster by a wide margin, but you see Foreman was also much better than David Montgomery last season. He got more yards before and after contact. While Monty was very comparable to guys like Zeke Elliott and Kareem Hunt, Foreman was higher up on the list and more comparable to guys like Dalvin Cook and Jonathan Taylor. He had a big season. Another crazy stat about Foreman, I found this on Twitter. Look at the comparison of Nick Chubb with Foreman. This is from week 7 to week 18 last year. They put up nearly identical numbers. Foreman had 191 carries for 876 yards and 5 touchdowns. Chubb had 192 carries for the identical yards and touchdowns, 876 yards and 5 touchdowns. They also both had 12 carries of 15 or plus yards, and they both broke more than 30 tackles. Insane that his production was nearly identical to Nick Chubb's after he took over as a starter last season. Also, if the previous charts, stats, and analytics didn't do it for you, I really believe Poles is a fan of next-gen stats. Another important stat is percentage of rushes over expected. This means that the runner gets more yards than expected on any given carry. Foreman was second in the entire NFL last year, and Khalil Herbert was 5th, giving us 2 top 5 runners at outperforming expectations every run. Another interesting note, Justin Fields also outgained his expected rushing yards on 65.9% of his carries last season as well. This rushing attack is going to be lethal. If you look at the rushing yards over expected leaders from week 7 to 18, Fields was number 1 in the entire NFL, and Foreman was number 5. Khalil Herbert was also top 10. The moral of the story is that I know we all loved Monty. It's sad to see him go, but I believe Poles has actually upgraded this running back room and saved money in doing so. Khalil Herbert, Foreman, and Travis Homer form a very unique three-man rotation that offers a ton of athleticism, speed, and different skill sets. On top of that, Ryan Poles can still add a runner late in this draft to make the room even better. I also think it's a bit weird that the Lions paid David Montgomery over Jamal Williams, who seemed to fit their culture so perfectly. Before yesterday, I firmly believed that Poles would take advantage of this running back draft class, and he still might. However, he's setting himself up perfectly to be able to draft heavy in the trenches. He filled the need of backup tight end role and filled the running back room with 3 talented runners. So he doesn't need to draft a running back now. He created even more flexibility, and like I've said, he's not done yet. I am very excited about this running back trio. I believe it's a lot better than the running back group we had last year. I've always been a big fan of Foreman, and I also really think Khalil Herbert can be special. Travis Homer's another guy who always produces when he gets a chance, and he's one of the best pass blockers at running back in the league, so he fills that need of having a reliable back to protect Justin Fields out of the backfield on 3rd and longs. I love the moves Ryan Poles is making. This offseason continues to get better and better, and it's just getting started. I cannot wait for the NFL draft. I'm going to be here every step of the way, covering every single move and breaking them down in full. I appreciate you guys so much for watching the videos. Please hit the like button for me if you remember. And until next time, bear down.